My question is, so my last job, I'm actually in between now,
Mhm.
fun times, but my last job was kind of a falling out, sort of a bad relationship that,
Mm.
just had to end. Um, so I get the question of why did you leave your last place of employment? Um, I try to go with just challenges and I want to expand and things like that, but how do you really address that when you had a falling out when, it was basically resign or terminate? I mean, that's
Mhm.
what it boiled down to.
So this is a great question. And hello, Saeed, good to see you as well. So it's a very good question because it's a question that every good interviewer will ask. You want to know, how did people leave their position and what they're looking for when they ask that question. One of my themes on these calls a lot of times is, what's the question behind the question? When they want to know why you left, what do you think they really want to know?
They want to know what type of employee you were, if you're bringing, if you just aren't a bad, good employee, you left because XYZ, they really want to know that.
Yeah, and they want to know, are you going to create the same issue here? Because chances are you will. So they want to know what actually happened. So it's a fine art. You never want to misrepresent or lie in an interview. It will end up coming back to hurt you. So there's a way in which you want to be always to be grounded in the truth, but at the same time strategic. In other words, there's a lot of different dimensions to those kinds of situations. There's a lot of perspectives that go into why an employee gets let go. So let us know a little bit about what were the circumstances that, how would you answer that? Actually, no, first of all, I want to hear, what were the circumstances that you actually left? What was the situation there?
Well, the situation was I'm in payroll, made some, probably some bigger mistakes. A lot of them were just geared towards, like you mess up one item and it just mushrooms. Like the actual thing was just one item, but it affected, let's say 100 people. And so, it looks like 100 mistakes when in fact it was just one. And there was just a lot of friction. I ended up on the bad list. I mean, they've literally pretty much had a bad list. And even when I tried to get, recognition, we would have our weekly meetings and things, and people would get recognized. And, I brought it up to my manager, my supervisor actually, and the answer I got was, well, your performance is bad, so we're not going to bring it up, which to me is like, throughout my career and throughout my years, is horrible leadership. I mean, you always praise in public and reprimand in private. And, even if I'm on the bad list, go ahead and bring that up. So, I mean, that's a way that relationship ended up. And, essentially we just came to the, especially I came to the realization that I just need to move on.
I'm curious, in that situation, was there any attempt or any discussion of a performance improvement plan for you to address the gap?
Nothing really solid. There was no milestones. There was nothing. It was basically just like, you need to do better. Nothing, no real good coaching. Some of the basic fundamentals, I would have problems with. And, I think in my situation, if I was a manager or supervisor, it would be like, okay, I'm going to team you up with somebody. Let's just, maybe kind of go on the basics. But yeah, they just kind of left me out there to dry because I was on the bad list. And
so part of what I'm hearing in this, and Eric, I'm just kind of operating on not a lot of knowledge of your situation, but I think one of the considerations is, and this is really for everybody on the call, we're all responsible for our own career development. You can't really count on people to guide you through that. Although if you have the benefit of a good mentor, that's always wonderful, but you can't always count on it. So a lot of times we have to proactively create the plan and the guidelines to address a performance issue and turn it around and show a proactive intent around that. So what I'm hearing was that you kind of had made this mistake and it was sort of irredeemable, and there wasn't any really solid plan of how to address it. What was my part? How do I do it better? And getting buy-in on that and taking charge of that process. And it sounds like your organization didn't have it, and that may not have been in your skill set to sort of create that for yourself. Is that fair to say that could have been a factor there?
yeah, and I mean, there was times where, yeah, okay, I did do that. I did take charge of it and things like that. But the way that they kind of operated was once you're in that hole, forget it. There is no coming out of it. And I saw that on countless people. They would struggle. I mean, it was just kind of poor leadership. When I went back through all of it, it's just poor leader. I mean, that's what it comes down to. There's no way to get out of that hole.
So thank you. That gives me what I need. So here's the deal. What happened is that narrative will not sell in an interview.
No, it won't. Yeah, I can't. That's what I mean. Like, that's why I brought it up, because there's
great question.
Oh, hey, by the way,
they were all screwed up, and that's why I lost my job. It's not going to get anywhere. So what you need to do is now look at what the truth is about your part in whatever that is, and your take on what happened. That is not about blaming anybody, but really looking at where there was a gap or whether something got dropped that was handled, and a process that explained why it made more sense for you to decide to leave. You were given the option to stay or go, right? Was that it at that point, or be fired?
Yeah, it was. I decided to go just the resignation. I thought it would look better to just resign rather than get term. Like I said, it just got ugly. It was a bad relationship toward the end, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to resign.
So let me hear the other narrative. Let me hear the narrative. If I'm the interviewer on the next job, why did you leave your last job, Eric?
Well, what I did is what I'm looking at, and it may be right or wrong. I don't know. That's why I kind of brought it up. But I was looking more at the, hey, I've been doing the same thing for the last 3 years. I'm looking for an opportunity. This was my first payroll job, so to speak. And there's a lot of avenues to payroll. I mean, it's a vast thing. So, I'm looking at it more for new challenges, different challenges. I was kind of doing the same thing for 3 years. I want to expand that. And I just hadn't had the opportunity there.
So one of the things that's a concern in that, you want to give them an answer that doesn't leave them with any questions.
Right.
So I'm now sitting with a lot of questions. Well, wait, it was kind of vague. What happened? So you want to have a nice, crisp answer. Maybe there was an incident, an experience, a point at which it just didn't, there's something that's where the story just makes perfect sense to me as the listener. And okay, got it. So can you be more concrete about without blaming them or indicating, deep flaws in your own stuff that you might have to work on that would cause them to concern to hire you? So how can you create the narrative around this that's still true to what happened, but more specific and grounded, and that it's going to reassure me as the interviewer, okay, I understand that. I can see how that would have happened.
Yeah, and that's where, I'm glad I have this opportunity to talk to you all, and I'm glad that there is this feedback and stuff, because I don't really know. I mean, I see this more in the, hey, what's a time that you struggled and what you do to fix it and things like that. I mean, it seems like a lot of my experiences I can put into that. But as far as why'd you leave the job, I draw a blank, and I kind of.
Well,
hey, Gordon and Eric, would this be a good place to interject maybe that it wasn't the right cultural fit as an explanation? Because he spent 3 years there at the job, so he hung in there for a while, but maybe it just wasn't culturally the right fit for him. And that seems to be a better pill to swallow than I was made the bad guy and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of, it really wasn't a good cultural fit for you. And
great idea. How does that sit for you, Eric?
Well, that's good. I like that. And I guess back out to the group. I mean, is that something that can come out like, hey, the culture?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it was just bad culture, and I quit because of bad culture. I mean, it just seems like, that, once again, Gordon, it brings up what's the follow-on questions? Well, what was it a bad culture doing?
Well, here's
sorry, I just want to add one thing, because I do really like that pivot, and I was listening, thinking about that too, of like, just kind of that pivot and not going into the explanation. But also what I like to build onto that is, it wasn't the right cultural fit, and I'm really looking for a culture that is X, Y, and Z.
yes,
So it's like a positive orientation. And then it kind of also like dispels like any questions they would have as to like, what was the culture, because you've already oriented them towards what you're looking for and then align that to like what their culture is. So
Beautiful, beautiful. So you get it right back on the focus of what's really important, which is the job you're here to look at.
Yeah.
So I
There-
think that's really good.
there's one other thing that I want to, so everything, I really loved all the coaching, and like as someone who has been in, a similar experience, one thing I know I struggled with is like shame.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think that might be something really good to kind of work for yourself with, these coaches, because I think that's one thing that kind of robs, there's like that little nagging inner voice in the back of your head when you're sitting in that interview. And, I think, that's where like the work is, at least it was for me.
I love it. Spot on. And that's what I was looking as well. There's often deep personal work to do around an incident like this. It's when you lose a job or leave a job like this, it's traumatic at a certain level. It's like a breakup of a relationship that's really important to you. So there's some stuff to look at. What part did I play in that? What are the lessons that I need to learn for myself? The more you do that personal inquiry, you can then sort of get your hands around the issue and have a proactive sense of how you're addressing it and moving forward. And that goes a long way to addressing the shame issue that Alba's pointing out, because sometimes the shame is this sense of, oh my God, I did this and I'm flawed and I can't do anything about it, as opposed to taking an honest look, that this happens. People lose jobs people join companies for a lot of reasons. They often lose jobs because of their relationship with their managers, to be honest. And there might be something in that to be digging into to look at, well, what happened there? Where did that go south? How did I have so little grace with my manager on this? How did I get put in this hole? And what did I do? Or what was missing? What were the clues early on about where a relationship had gone south that I maybe didn't catch? So there's a lot of good work to do for you personally as well to help you prepare for that decision. So thank you, Alba, also for your experience. Sounds like you've learned a lot yourself in this process, which is great. Thank you for sharing that. So
thank you. Wayne. And so, and Eric, I think that there's probably certainly more to go into here, and that may be something we get into. I want to say kind of overall for everybody listening in, to underline some things, and Dr. Medlock, to refer back to some of the work I've seen you do with people on stuff like this before, is the kind of strategy is to be able to, as much as possible, to say bottom lined, a brief, short, clear, good answer, but then to have also done the work, the internal work, so that if there's more questions that come, you're able to stay on your own side with it. And it can actually turn into a wonderful conversation about the company that you're interviewing at. We've had that happen before where, somebody might say, I left and it was due to this. I didn't know how to handle the relationship I had with so-and-so. I brought things up. It didn't work out. I'm seeing now that I wish I'd tried some of these things. And about this position here, one of the reasons I'm interested in this company, it looks like you have the kind of environment where people who are hungry to develop like myself have, and you're able to have what you're working on personally, and that you can demonstrate, yeah, I take responsibility for my shortcomings. We all have them, no big, and right. And here's the vision of where I'm going. And I think this company is in alignment there. And here's what I bring, and you can move into that space and really get in, where you're Dr. Medlock, you've said this, where it's like in an interview, if you can picture yourself at a round table at the beginning, you're on one side, interviewers are on the other. And through all of the interview and the questions that they're asking, if you can picture yourself, you're moving around so that you're both sitting on the same side of the table, looking at the job together, so that by the end of it, even if they're like, you know what, Eric's not a fit, but dang, that was a great interview. I got to look at this position better. I'm going to keep him in mind for stuff.
Right. And I think kind of to that point too, of the culture, I actually, kind of thinking back, there was a few companies where on my cover letter, I did tailor it a little bit that way. I haven't had a chance to interview with them, but there was ones that did seem to kind of line up better with my my personality and things like that, that the company focused on. It was like things that they actually called out too, that I agreed with and things like that. I haven't had a chance to interview, but once again, putting it on a cover letter and then doing the interview are two totally different things.
And I think if you also, Janet, if you, or Jane, if you could put in the links just the contact information for George Donald or myself in terms of to follow up on this in more detail, to really look at some of the deeper issues that might be going on there, I think could be helpful as well. So.
Fantastic.